helping out. President Donald Trump signs a measure to send nearly $500 billion to small businesses and hospitals. Follow the money. Democrats announce plans to investigate how the COVID-19 funds are being spent. Mary, our mother. The head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is asking Our Lady to help end the coronavirus crisis. And teaching by testing. Pope Francis reminds the faithful about the importance of serving others. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, April 24th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. The House of Representatives has a new subcommittee tasked with tracking the federal government's more than $2 trillion response to the coronavirus. But not everyone is excited for it to get to work. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has reaction from both sides of the political fence. Eric?
Well, Tracy, the new 12-member panel will have the ability to be able to subpoena White House administrative officials. Now, Republicans say all it does is just duplicate what other committees can do. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says it will be laser focused on ensuring your taxpayer dollars are spent correctly. A prayer petition this morning on Capitol Hill.
The House is again silent, and all the nation awaits the influx of assistance on the local level.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi pushed for the new House Oversight Subcommittee.
I especially was pleased that we were able to pass our legislation to establish the Select Committee to address the coronavirus crisis.
Democrats say President Trump has already undercut oversight by ousting the chair of the Pandemic Response Committee.
I don't think there could be enough oversight. I think our constituents expect us to make sure that that money is being spent to where it should be spent.
Chaired by House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, the new Oversight Committee will have authority to investigate the use of federal coronavirus relief funds allocated by Congress.
We already have 8 different entities doing the oversight we're all supposed to do to look out for the taxpayer interest. The Democrats want a 9th because the 9th is political.
Republican Senator Bill Cassidy tells me he doesn't want to see a political witch hunt.
Congress needs to perform its constitutional responsibility, not just of oversight, but how do we spend money and what is the best way to do so?
And he tells me he believes faith will see us through.
And I just want to thank the watchers of EWTN for their ministry of prayer, of encouragement, of service, of showing love by every other means to everyone else. I thank you. Your light is shining brightly.
The vote to pass the bill, which created the committee, fell on strict party lines. No Republicans voted for it. Tracy?
Correspondent Eric Rosales reporting tonight. Thank you, Eric. President Trump signed the bill earlier this afternoon. This as another work week has gone by with millions of Americans currently out of work and also out of school. And while the money will buy more time, the question is, will it outlast the virus? White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting remotely for us. Owen?
Tracy, with the president's signature, more help is on the way to Americans who need it, and tonight that need is huge.
We're gathered today for a very historic bill signing that will provide vital financial relief to American workers and families.
President Donald Trump signs another bill to keep America afloat.
This is a tremendous victory. This is on top of all of the other things that we've been doing.
Thousands of lives lost, millions of jobs gone, and trillions of dollars spent.
More help is on the way. Small businesses will be able to keep even more Americans on the payroll.
Meanwhile, the green light is given in Georgia. Barbers and nail salon workers are among those who can open up shop. Protective gear and frequent cleaning a must. The president not too keen on that move.
But I want people to be safe, and I want the people in Georgia to be safe. And I don't want this thing to flare up because you're deciding to do something that is not in the guidelines.
And Atlanta's mayor doesn't like it either.
But we are not out of the woods. People are still getting infected. People are still dying. We don't have a cure to this virus.
And if you want to just get away from it all and head to the ocean for a little surf and sun, well, some popular California beach towns like Pacifica and Half Moon Bay near San Francisco don't want you to come by, at least not for now. In fact, you could get a hefty fine.
It's not even like, oh, we don't want you to surf here because you're not from here. It's more like you're not following the rules and you're not sheltering in place. And it's unfortunate that you don't live 2 blocks from the beach like I do.
The latest numbers tonight, more than 50,000 Americans have died due to COVID-19. Also, New York State is reporting its lowest daily death total due to the disease. And President Trump says countries from around the world are calling, asking for ventilators, and he's happy to help them out. Tracy?
White House correspondent Owen Jensen reporting for us tonight. Thank you, Owen. Well, as the search continues for effective treatments and a possible vaccine to cure COVID-19, the Catholic Benefits Association warns against the use of human embryonic stem cells and tissue from aborted babies in any clinical trials. Joining me now on Skype to talk more about this is Martin Nussbaum. He is the General Counsel for the Catholic Benefits Association. Martin, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tracy. Thank you for having me.
So, Martin, bring us up to speed on this. A number of lawmakers are asking, in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, for this to be changed. But isn't there currently a ban in place on the use of tissue from aborted babies in clinical research?
Well, one would think so. And one of the things we saw with the Catholic Benefits Association back in 2015, when there was the undercover identification of a market selling baby parts, selling tissue from unborn babies, as we began asking, well, who's buying that tissue, and whether somehow or another that had worked itself into the Affordable Care Act. And what we found is a sleeper provision within the Affordable Care Act, which mandates the seemingly innocuous requirement that employers cover in their plans clinical trials. We looked a little further and saw that the FDA had actually approved at least 36 clinical trials that utilize either human embryonic stem cells or they utilize actual tissue harvested from aborted fetuses. And the problem with this is most Catholic employers have no idea this is in their plan, because the plan simply says they cover clinical trials, and the HIPAA requirements don't allow them to find out if any of the employees are using it. And so we at the Catholic Benefits Association, which represents some 1,100 Catholic employers, including 62 dioceses, filed a petition with the HHS Office of Civil Rights, asking them to provide a religious exemption as required under the Religious Freedom Restoration Act for CBA members. So it's a serious problem. It's not really been given much publicity, but a lot of Catholic employers, including dioceses, are unwittingly paying for this and covering it in their plans.
I know that you met with Roger Severino, the director of the Office for Civil Rights at HHS, to talk about your objections to the Affordable Care Act's clinical trial mandate, which requires employers with health plans to cover the cost of such clinical trials. What's the administration's response?
Well, Roger Severino has been a great friend of religious freedom, as have others at HHS, and also of human life. So they care about this. But to date, even though we filed our petition back in October of 2018, HHS has yet to grant an exemption for our members. So we're hoping that they will do that soon and address this directly. You know, the fine for not covering this, by the way, is $100 per covered beneficiary per day. That's $36,500 per beneficiary per year. So without a religious exemption in the statute or the regulation, and with fines like that, we need relief, and we hope that HHS Office of Civil Rights will provide it.
Oh, Martin, quickly, I know your group represents Catholic employers. What are you hearing from them about this?
Well, Catholic employers that came together, the board of the Catholic Benefits Association includes 6 archbishops and a bishop and several prominent Catholic laypersons. And in fact, our founding chairman of the board is Archbishop Laurie, and one of his key concerns over the years has been religious freedom. He's the former chair of the USCCB Religious Freedom Committee, and they want to provide health care benefits to their employees. Catholic teaching requires that, but they don't want to provide benefits that include contraceptives, abortifacients, sterilization, or certainly they don't want to provide benefits that include tissue harvested from aborted fetuses. So they're concerned about it, and that's why they came together to form the CBA.
Well, Martin, thank you so much for your time and for your insight on this. We really appreciate it. Martin Nussbaum, General Counsel for the Catholic Benefits Association. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a good day.
The head of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops announces a plan to reconsecrate the country to the Blessed Virgin. Archbishop Jose Gomez of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles says the service to Mother Mary of our church will take place May 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern. On the same day, church leaders in Canada will dedicate that country to Our Lady. Pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong have been quiet since the coronavirus pandemic started, but a group held a demonstration today in a shopping center. They were protesting the arrest of more than a dozen protest leaders last week, all while maintaining social distancing. They also warned that once the health crisis is over, they will be back on the streets again. Although schools are closed in Hong Kong, high school students are taking exams to get into college. They had to go through a thermal imaging scan to check their temperatures and sat further apart than usual. This is just the first day. 50,000 students will take the tests, which will last about a month.
Die zweite Etappe planen wir für den 15.05.
Austria's Minister of Education announces that schools will reopen in May in phases. Heinz Fussmann says graduating seniors will go back to school a week from Monday. The rest of the children will return to school May 15th. However, classes will be split in half, allowing for studying in shifts. Muslims around the world begin fasting for the holy month of Ramadan, but many can't get home for family gatherings. And most mosques are closed. In Pakistan, police are blocking access to mosques and asking people to pray at home. Muslims usually fast during the day during Ramadan, followed by lavish meals and get-togethers. This year, they're in lockdown because of the coronavirus pandemic. Small businesses in Rome are preparing to open their doors after being closed for more than 45 days in quarantine. The Trattoria degli Amici restaurant opened its doors this week for online delivery for dinner. The restaurant is run by the Community of Sant'Egidio. It employs people with disabilities and many other volunteers. Sophie Jansen's volunteer at the Trattoria degli Amici in Rome joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us, Sophie.
Hi. Hello.
So can you tell me how the quarantine and lockdown has been for the volunteers and staff of the restaurant?
Well, of course, the lockdown is difficult for everybody, and but I think especially our friends with mental disabilities, you have no idea, they love to work, and they really sometimes when they have to take their holidays, they are sad because they can't come to the restaurant. So you can imagine it's been really a very sad situation for them. Of course, when the lockdown was announced and we started taking measures to restrict, we saw the need of it because we wanted to protect our friends with disabilities, but also our clients, the other personnel. So there was a need for it. But of course, it's a difficult time for everybody, and also financially. Of course, the restaurant is not productive now, when it's just high season in Rome. So also financially, it will be a bit of difficulty for us to face.
Well, I know that you've been volunteering for nearly 15 years there. What's your personal experience working with people with disabilities? Can you talk about that?
Well, working in the trattoria, it makes you smile and it makes you happy because it's a beautiful place. And for me personally, you know, we are volunteers of the Sant'Egidio community. For us, it's really also the way to make the difference and to work for the realization of what's written in the gospel and to build a really humane city. And there is a lot of joy in the restaurant, and among the personnel, there is a very nice relationship, and the clients feel that too, and this joy is transmitted to that. We have many usual Roman clients who come in for a meal, but also casual tourists who drop in the restaurant and they don't know what is waiting for them. So they discover that we are not just a restaurant, and it's lovely to to talk to them and to make some time to share something about what we lived all together, and to give them, I think, a little pearl, also a pearl of the beauty of how a city can be.
So you mentioned delivery service once the lockdown is lifted. What else is the restaurant doing to get more customers in once everything's lifted?
Well, we have a lot of publicity so made, but from one to another. Many people love to come back because they have really nice experience in the restaurant, and it's not just having a meal and good food, which the food is very good, but it's also really to spend a pleasant evening. So there is a lot of publicity made from one to another. We try to use the social media to publicize now the delivery service, and also when we are opening. Many people stayed in contact with us during the lockdown, and that's really good for us. It's very encouraging to know that many people are waiting to come back and to start again. But it will take some time probably before people can really, because the social restrictions will be last for a while. So we hope it will be fine, because we really need it to open again.
Well, Sophie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience with us. We appreciate it and all that you do. Sophie Jansen's volunteer at the Trattoria degli Amici in Rome. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye.
Coming up, an update on a Catholic church in Oklahoma damaged earlier this week. There are reports of widespread damage in the wake of 2 days of severe storms and tornadoes that swept across the southern part of the United States. At least 7 people have been killed. Holy Cross Catholic Church in Madill, Oklahoma was one casualty of that storm system. Its south side and most of its windows were destroyed. Fortunately, Father Obi, the church's pastor, was unharmed. Joining me now on Skype is Archbishop Paul Coakley of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City. Your Excellency, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's my pleasure.
We've seen pictures of Holy Cross, but I know that you actually toured the destruction in Madill. Can you describe the situation there and what it was like for you being on the ground, seeing it firsthand?
We drove down yesterday morning, I and 2 staff members here from the Archdiocese, to look in on Father Obi to see how he was doing and to survey the damage ourselves. As I said, it's in Oklahoma, this time of year is always something where we've become sadly accustomed to. But my first impression, I think, was one of gratitude that Father Obi was safe. He had emerged from his safe room to look up and to see blue skies above him, because he had stepped into the safe room just moments before the tornado destroyed his house. So he was safe. Brand new rectory, which he had occupied only since August, was destroyed. And the church I just dedicated last June, it was not destroyed, but thanks be to God, it had mostly cosmetic damage.
Well, we're so happy to hear that Father Obi is okay. What a frightening situation for him.
It was. Undoubtedly, he was in shock a bit, but he's a cheerful priest, and he's a great guy, and he was taking it in stride to the extent that one is able to do such a thing. But his parishioners reached out to him and embraced him, and were tremendously supportive of him. They were all assisting him yesterday, providing him with all that he needed, food, meals, helping him move his personal items out of the rectory, and beginning to prepare to discover yet another new normal. We're getting used to new normals a lot these days.
Absolutely. Very challenging times indeed. And as we mentioned before, challenging enough due to the COVID-19 pandemic. What are you hearing from your flock and elsewhere in the Archdiocese, and what can we all do to help?
Well, we certainly appreciate prayer. I think we're all in need of prayer. Everybody's beginning to feel the burden of this isolation and social distancing. So we appreciate the prayer for the people of Madill and Holy Cross Parish and others that were affected by these storms over the last 48 hours. I don't think there will be any kind of a need for any material assistance at this time. fortunately, the material damage was relatively limited. We have been through terrible storms here in Oklahoma, and we have a pretty good safety net in place, and agencies, and including our own Catholic Charities and others that are able to step in and respond in times of crisis such as this. But I think people's prayer and concern is always so important to us. So thank you for that.
Your Excellency, what would be your message to the faithful right now with all that's going on?
God is with us. I think this is part of life's journey, I think. It is, we just completed the season of Lent, but in many ways, I think it feels to most of us as if Lent continues. I refer to it often as the long Lent of 2020, not only because of the COVID-19 and social distancing and the isolation that many people are feeling and living with, but the insecurity added to, compounded by these recent spring storms here in Oklahoma and the South. But God is with us. God is always with us, and I think that's what we have celebrated and experienced during the Sacred Triduum, that God is faithful, God is merciful. Just last Sunday we celebrated Divine Mercy, and I think that was perhaps especially meaningful to many of us this year, to experience God's merciful love for each of us.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time and all that you're doing down there. We will continue to pray for you all down there. Archbishop Paul Coakley, thank you again.
Thank you.
A few more U.S. bishops are announcing churches can reopen and resume celebrating Mass this Sunday, but only if everyone practices social distancing. Two dioceses are in Montana, Great Falls, Billings, and Helena, Montana. Another is in Lubbock, Texas. Reopening the churches still depends on space and cleaning to comply with state regulations. And you can read more about the bishop's statements at our sister publication, CatholicNewsAgency.com. Up next, the Holy Father says Christ taught the disciples by testing them. We'll explain. And a closer look at our country without sports. Pope Francis reminds the faithful Jesus teaches us by testing us.
E così li insegnava. Quella vicinanza al popolo di Dio.
At his daily Mass at the Vatican, the Holy Father says Jesus wanted the disciples to learn how to serve others, and that even when our Lord was tired or wanted a quiet moment, he always welcomed visits from people and especially children. Pope Francis also prayed for students and teachers as they try new methods of learning during this pandemic. Massive sporting events are canceled around the world, and while we may not be going to the ballpark anymore, what happens on the field can provide lessons in faith. Correspondent Mark Irons joins us now with that story. Mark?
Tracy, providing a sense of community, entertainment, and jobs for many, there's no question sports can be a big part of our lives, but can they also call us to something more?
A world without sports is a whole new ballgame for athletes and fans alike. Major League Baseball is considering a season in empty ballparks.
Playing in an empty stadium would be interesting, to say the least. I think a lot of us feed off of the energy of the fans.
The World Series champion, Washington Nationals first baseman Ryan Zimmerman, is adjusting to life away from the field.
Baseball is their life.
The Nationals team chaplain, Monsignor Stephen Rossetti, is not only concerned about the players he ministers to, but all the people losing employment.
The ushers, the people working in retail, the ticket takers, just so many people who are part of the Major League Baseball family.
And no ticket purchases means no fans to watch top performances.
I would make the argument that sport, performance, has the same capacity to raise us up and have us contemplate God. When you see a world-class athlete performing, you realize God made this person in his image and likeness.
Dr. Bill Thierfelder is a former All-American athlete and licensed sports psychologist. He's also a husband, father of 10 children, and Catholic.
He cautions sports need moderation too.
For example, your 8-year-old's on the traveling hockey team or something, and Sundays and has been now not so much set aside for worshiping God and reflecting and being together with family, but it becomes more of, hey, we're going to get in the van and drive from event to event.
For now, empty neighborhood ball fields and stadiums, and a reminder that there can be more to the top athletes than what you see on the highlight reel.
There's a real interest in faith, and many of the players try to really integrate their faith with their sports playing.
And some athletes are helping in the coronavirus fight, donating millions to charity. Tracy, as we've seen across the board, sports have gone silent. Pro basketball and hockey seasons suspended. The Boston Marathon moved to September. The Masters Golf Tournament moved to November. And even the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games, Tracy, now moved to 2021.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Correspondent Mark Irons reporting for us tonight. And a quick reminder before we go, EWTN broadcasts Mass throughout the day. Mass airs at 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. Eastern. We're also showing the Pope's daily Mass and other special programming throughout the day. We also have Eucharistic adoration from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on our website, EWTN.com. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. We're back on Monday with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night and God bless.